Homang, Charlie Smith, Jongpenchi, Georgia Straight Newspaper, and I'm happy to be here on WOW TV again with a weekly news roundup. And later in the show, we will have Michelle De Silva to talk about some of the hot topics in the area of food. But the biggest story right now in the province is the provincial election, which is coming up on Tuesday, May 14th. And it's really shaping up as a two-person race between the NDP, led by Adrian Dix, and the BC Liberals, led by Christy Clark. And the recent poll for the Victoria Times Colonist by Oracle Poll Research has the NDP with a 4 percentage lead, 41% compared to 37% for the BC Liberals. And the Green Party is in third place at 12%, and the BC Conservatives under John Cummins are in fourth place at 10%. What's happened over the course of the campaign, which has been taking place over the past month, has been that the Liberals have been narrowing the gap in the opinion polls as Christy Clark has been traveling across the province and trying to talk up about her emphasis on economic issues, and in particular the export of liquefied natural gas to Asia, and that's something she's been talking about to a great extent. And meanwhile, Adrian Dix has been talking about a whole bunch of different policies, including education, healthcare, how to deal with poverty and child poverty, as well as the economy. One of the things that's happened over the past week is the NDP has suddenly gotten more aggressive in its response to the Liberals. Over the first part of the campaign, and even before the election campaign, the BC Liberals were running these attack ads on Adrian Dix, and they kind of made him look like he was some sort of nasty character. And Adrian Dix said he wasn't going to be doing personal attacks on Christy Clark. He actually said that he thought Christy Clark was a good person, but he wasn't going to engage in personal attacks. He was only going to discuss policies. Well, what's happened over the past week is the NDP has gotten more aggressive in their response, and they're raising issues about the BC Liberals' handling of the harmonized sales tax. That was when they combined the federal and the provincial tax to be harmonized at 12%, the sales taxes, the GST, and that was very controversial, and there was a province-wide referendum where the tax was defeated, and then they had to replace it and go back to the old provincial sales tax and the GST, but the provincial sales tax does not apply to restaurant meals, tickets, club memberships, and a whole bunch of things that were captured by the HST. So now the NDP is talking about that, and then what happened late in the week was the NDP released documents that it had obtained from the Premier's office, and these documents showed that while they were working on government time, the staff were actually doing political work to help the BC Liberals' chances in a by-election in Port Moody-Coquitlam. And that this is not supposed to be happening because under the government system in British Columbia, if you're doing political party work, you can't do that while working for the government, that there's a separation, and usually people take a leave of absence or they take time off from their job to work on political campaigns. So the NDP has demonstrated that government staff working in the Premier's office were in fact working on political issues. So this has created a problem for Christy Clark. Another problem that has just recently emerged was a television news report that there was a Club 801, which was named after when the polls close on Tuesday, that is a bunch of disaffected Liberals who want to get to work on replacing Christy Clark as the BC Liberal leader after the election. And that's assuming, of course, that she would lose. However, Rich Coleman, who is one of the most experienced BC Liberal cabinet ministers, has jumped out in public and said that that report is not true. One of the television stations actually had buttons showing the number 801, and 801 signifies 8:01 p.m., which is 1 minute after the polls close. So somebody's made the buttons. We're just not quite sure who did that. So the provincial election, things are getting quite heated on the campaign trail. One of the other stories that we've been following is the Vancouver Canucks, which is the hockey team in Vancouver, and they were defeated in the NHL playoffs in 4 straight games, and this has been a major disappointment, actually, for many people in the business community in Vancouver, because there were a lot of people who would come downtown and go to restaurants, go to bars. There's staff who work at Rogers Arena. So a lot of people have been affected by this loss by the Canucks. And on Friday, they're cleaning out their lockers. There's a lot of speculation that the coach may be fired, and that's been a big issue. That could actually have ramifications in the provincial election, because if there isn't hockey to distract people, that they may pay more attention to politics, and we may see more media coverage of politics and the election, which could encourage more people to get out to vote. And the other issue is if the campaign workers are not watching hockey games, or they're contacting people who are not watching hockey games, they may be more receptive to hearing political messages. So if the NDP wins the election, they've promised to change the 4-year election period to end in October so that we will have fall elections in the future. Another thing the NDP has promised to do is eliminate corporate and union donations. Right now, corporations and unions can donate to political parties in British Columbia. They're not allowed to do it at the federal level. Adrian Dix says he would like to eliminate this practice at the provincial level. Right now, there are a lot of television advertisements going over the airwaves featuring Christy Clark, featuring Adrian Dix. We won't know who's paying for those ads until after the election period is over, and then the data is released through Elections BC. So Tuesday night is a big day in British Columbia. We may be choosing a new government, or we may keep the same government under Christy Clark. And I'm sure it's going to capture a lot of interest, not only in British Columbia, but also across the country.